Return. It's like the wrestling world turned into the Oprah Winfrey show this weekend with all of these returns. We're going to break down all of the news across the wrestling world, feeling the after effects, SummerSlam, NXT TakeOver, and of course, CM Punk. It's all right here on your Thursday edition of the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast. The bomb drops now. Hello and welcome to this Thursday edition of the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans. I am your phenomenal host, Mr. Podcasting, Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher24 on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The show is at PBW Podcast, so make sure that you check us out on all of those social media platforms. Make sure you follow us, interact with us on social media. We greatly appreciate it. Wherever you're listening to our podcast, whether it's on Spotify, whether it's on Apple, whether it's on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And most importantly, if you're listening on SportsWire Radio, thank you so much for doing that. We appreciate your support wherever you may be listening. Thanks to Tom and that crew for all of their support. We appreciate their partnership. Once again, my name is Chris Belcher, and I am joined, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I have a very special guest in the room making his third or fourth, depending on which way you're counting, appearance on the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast. The man, the myth, the legend, the granddad, the ancient school, my dad, Billy Belcher. How are you?
I'm fine.
Are you good? Are you excited to be on this podcast?
Thrilled to death.
Thrilled to death to be on the podcast, especially after I threw shade at you this past weekend.
Oh, yeah. That was an opinionated man.
Yes. But I am your son, so I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right?
And opinions are like
buttholes. Everybody's got one,
yeah.
And most of them stink. Yeah. I know. Speaking of stinks, he doesn't really stink. He's the indie darling. Andy York is joining. That shirt stinks. Andy York is joining us on the show, my regular Thursday co-host. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. I think this is the most I've been excited to talk about wrestling in a long time. This whole weekend was just almost perfect all the way through. So I'm so ready to talk about it.
Listen, this was the most loaded weekend of professional wrestling that I can think of in a long time. And to me, that outweighs 2 nights of WrestleMania with SmackDown on Friday and just all that. I mean, this weekend was just absolutely insane. We're going to talk all about it. Let's kick it off. Last week, we did not talk about AEW at all. Of course, we have our CCW Music City Fight Night show coming up in Nashville this weekend as well. So we're going to talk about that later. We're going to table AEW for just a minute because I know that's going to take a little bit. Let's recap WWE SummerSlam, NXT TakeOver. Let's get some thoughts on that because we cannot gloss over. If you did not listen to our live call-in show on SportsWire, it is available in our archives as you're listening to this. Make sure you go check it out. It's a blast. And I know Tom and those guys, they're replaying it all the time. So make sure you follow on social media and check out when that show's going to air. It's a lot of fun. Myself, Jared Justice was on there. Tom was leading the pack on that one. My college buddy, Mike Irwin, shout out to him. It was a blast having him call in and share his opinions on the show. And I know that, Dad, you and Andy were interacting with us on social media as well. And I know you were commenting a lot more than what was getting read, and that's not throwing shade to Tom at all. That's just we were having such riveting discussions that we could not get it all in. So I want to use this platform to talk about sort of your all's reaction. Dad, I'll start with you about SummerSlam in its entirety. Of course, we saw the return of Becky Lynch, the return of Brock Lesnar, fantastic main event with Roman Reigns and John Cena, a knockdown drag-out brawl with Edge and Seth Rollins. Don't forget about Charlotte Flair winning. I mean, the list goes on and on with the crazy things that happened at SummerSlam. What were your thoughts?
Well, SummerSlam to me was better than WrestleMania, the last WrestleMania.
I can get behind that.
There were down matches that wasn't as good. Some wasn't as good as the other, but the ones that were really good were really good.
Sure they were.
And then you have all the in-between talk, nonsense going on that, you go to the bathroom and get you a popcorn or pop when that's going on.
Sure.
But the matches were phenomenal, the really good ones. And except for 2 or 3 of them, they were all really good, especially, the Sheamus and what's his
Damian
name?
Priest
Was really good too.
Oh, man.
People didn't think it was a really good match.
That was so good. Like I talked about it on the post show that I thought that match was sort of the turnaround of the event. That was sort of the launching off point where, as far as being in the building, the crowd got a hold of that match, and for the rest of the night they didn't let go.
Yeah, they were into it. That match, Charlotte's match, and Seth and Edge's match, and Roman and Cena, you couldn't get 4 better matches than that.
No, you absolutely couldn't. And then, of course, can't discount the return of Becky Lynch. What a pop. That was insane. It was so loud in that building, I couldn't hear myself think. Andy, give me some thoughts on SummerSlam and your reactions.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think SummerSlam this year was much better than WrestleMania. I don't want to say much better, but I think it was all around better than WrestleMania. We didn't have a rain delay, so that was a positive for it. But I agree. The Damian Priest Sheamus match was probably the shock match of the night. That was much better than probably a lot of people anticipated. Seth and Edge was the second best match of the weekend for me. It was such a good match. I loved every second. The Roman Cena match, there were all the near falls had me on the edge of my seat because I was there were 2 or 3 times where I thought Cena's about to win this. Like Cena's about to put Roman down, and then Roman kicked out the last second. So it was great false finishes.
We were talking about it there in the stands, Jared and I and a couple of guys that were around us. Roman, number one, Roman is underrated. I don't care what anybody says. That guy can go in the ring, but Roman is so good at kicking out at the very last second. I mean, the very last possible second. He is so good at that. His anticipation of that is just incredible. And he proved it in that match.
Well, when you're in an arena, you can't, unless you're right on the first 1 or 2 rows, you can't see that happen. But on the big screen TV at home where the camera's there, Roman was waiting to the last millisecond to kick out. I thought he's going to mess up. He's going to lose.
Well, to me, I think Roman and Brock Lesnar is really good at this too, of like not moving, even when they're going to kick out, not moving until like the very last second to kick out, because that's what really sells it. So like both those guys were doing a fantastic job of it. And I mean, to me, it really surprised me that we only got, and I think I was smart. We only got 1 spear to put away Cena. And I think that is really smart to put Roman over even bigger in like a subtle way. It was the spear is probably the most, between the spear and the one-winged angel, it's like those two are like the most protected finishers right now.
Yep, that's it. Yep, 100% right. And I said in the stands, you just mentioned it. I told Jared at one point, I don't remember what point in the match I said this. I told him, I said, 1 spear is going to get it done. I guarantee it. When he hits it, it's over.
Well, when you're in the arena, you can't hear Cena and Roman talking, but the mic is so loud. Roman says, "You're not going to roll me up, buddy. You're not going to roll me up." And Cena just kept trying to roll him up. He said, no.
Yeah.
But what a fantastic story that was. For them to be able to tell for sure.
It was such a different story than what they told last time, which I really appreciate. And then real quick, before we kind of move on, to me, obviously, CM Punk was the best thing that happened this weekend. The most shocking to me was Brock Lesnar returning. That was the most shocking to me, which I was very much for. And then the whole Becky Bianca debacle. I'm glad she's back. She's back. And if they're going the direction, that the dirt sheets that you can always believe, if they're going the direction that they're saying where they're going to bring Becky back as a heel, then I think this. I mean, to me, that's a great way to get some heel heat on her. Sure. It just kind of. It was so weird to do it with the Carmella and then bring Becky back to get this massive pop and then to do that weird angle. To me, it was a little disjointing. I'm not going to just go ahead and say, I know I texted it to you, but I thought about it longer because that was like my raw reaction to it.
Sure was. Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to derail Bianca because, Sheamus beat Daniel Bryan in like 18 seconds to WrestleMania and he bounced back. So there are a couple times where it does like derail him, but sometimes it elevates him even more. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do here. It just kind of, for her to get that big moment in front of that big crowd to be squashed like that kind of left a sour taste, but we'll see where they go with it.
See, I think, I said this on the post show, Bianca's young enough. She's talented enough. She's popular enough. Yep. She's going to be fine. Like this is not going to hurt her at all because let's face it. Two things here. If we're all forgetting who is derailing her, it's Becky Lynch.
And probably the second best women's wrestler in the WWE.
Exactly. And probably arguably the most popular and hottest over the last 2 to 3 years.
Exactly.
Yep.
So let's not forget who is derailing her. You know what I mean? So it's Becky Lynch, guys. And they're not just going to throw the title on her and have her go away like Brock Lesnar. Becky's back.
Yeah.
You know, it may take her a couple weeks before she has a full match because I guarantee you she's not in ring shape, but she's back.
Well, I don't think they would, you know, the concept is not let Bianca win. And you're not going to beat Becky. She's not going to beat Becky right off the top because of who Becky is.
That's exactly
so.
Right.
Why make it emphasize it more? Let's do it real quick.
Yep.
And let's just put a big shock out to everybody.
Absolutely.
And see where it goes from now. And it can only build to bigger things.
Well, and think about this too. Think about the fact that let's reverse the roles here. Let's say that Becky gets her pop and she comes out and the bell rings. Boom. Bianca hits the kiss of death. 1, 2, 3. Now all of the fan base is in frenzy because you just beat the most popular women's wrestler of the last 3 years in about 8 seconds with a young pup who's only been on the main roster for a year.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what the internet would be saying, Andy. I mean, that's
so
it.
To me, it was like either way with a quick finish, people weren't going to be receptive. And I mean, like I said, if they're going to go with the Becky heel turn, then that makes sense in the storyline. But if they're not, to me, a much more sensible solution was, well, one, don't wait till the last second to tell everybody Sasha's not going to be there if you knew for 8 days. But then two, like you could have Zelina Vega and Carmella attack Bianca in the ring, and then Becky comes back to make the save. If you want to bring her back right now because Sasha's going to be gone and you want to set up this big match down the line, you could do it that way to where, you know, you keep the title on Bianca, you have Becky come back, you have her fight off these two people. Now you have the two biggest women right now on SmackDown, standing face to face in the ring at SummerSlam to set up something down the line. I think would have been better if they're not going to do this whole Becky Lynch heel turn, yada, yada, yada thing.
And we saw how the heel turn went last time. It went in the toilet very, very quickly because everybody loved it.
Well, and part of that was because she turned on Charlotte too.
Well,
I think that was a big part of it too.
That's true too. So we get Becky, we get Brock. Like you said, that was incredibly shocking. Brock Lesnar's back. I didn't expect the Brock Roman match to be set up this quickly, but here we are, Crown Jewels coming up. So got to have big stars on it. So enter Brock Lesnar.
Yep.
That being said, though, quickly, some fallout from Monday Night Raw. Dad, I know you're going to love this. It looks like our 12-time women's champion is going to go up against Alexa Bliss as her next challenger and Lily.
And she's going to treat her just like she did the wannabe hero.
Yep.
She's going to squash her and stand on top of her.
I don't know if that'll happen.
They're going to put the belt on Lily, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
They're going to get a little belt for Lily. I can already see
belt
it.
For Lily.
Or they're going to do what they did with The Fiend and have Lily's face stretched out as a belt.
Yeah, probably.
Sports entertainment.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Listen, I'm just telling y'all, like, I'm not BSing at all. I know I'm an Alexa Bliss mark, but she got a huge pop at SummerSlam.
Well,
the fans were behind her.
Yeah.
Alexa can wrestle, and she is a really good wrestler, and she has really good matches. And I'm not throwing shade at her because she's a really good wrestler, but some things they do is, you know,
a little questionable.
It's sports entertainment. It's not wrestling where you got Becky and Charlotte and you got Sasha and these other ladies. They wrestle. They get in there.
Well,
and Rhea Ripley.
Yeah. I think the difference with Alexa and all this, and I don't mean to go down this rabbit hole, but I think the difference, because we've seen characters over the years that they've tried to put a character on.
Yep.
For example, Eva Marie, that they've tried to put a character on to hide their wrestling skills because they don't have any. No, Alexa has wrestling skills. You just mentioned it. She also has incredible promo skills.
Yeah.
And they've saddled her with this character. So to me, that's why it's more digestible than if it was somebody else, if that makes sense.
Yeah. To me, it would be, I mean, kind of going back what we talked about a few weeks ago, it would be even more digestible if Bray Wyatt was still in the company and you had them together.
Right.
Because they really worked well together, and her character just makes more sense now made more sense with Bray Wyatt than a part of Bray Wyatt. Right. Or away from Bray Wyatt. So I agree with that. But I think it's going to be a fun match as long as there are no the Lily shenanigans that get involved. Right. I think if they just if they keep it at a strict wrestling match between Charlotte and Alexa, I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun anyway. So I'm on board for it. The less Lily, the better. But I doubt we're going to get that.
I think the fans are going to hate Charlotte more.
Oh yes, they are.
Because she's going to try to stomp a mud hole in her and run it dry.
She's probably going to rip Lily's head off.
Yeah.
Legit rip Lily's head off.
Nobody has it yet. She will.
She definitely will. All right. Andy, if you guys did not listen, this past Sunday night did an incredible job recapping NXT TakeOver 36. Andy, you said it. Not the best TakeOver, but certainly not the worst. I mean, some incredible matches. Your match of the entire weekend was on there. I was not able to make it because I was exhausted. Jet lag actually got a hold of me this time. Normally doesn't, but it did this time. So I appreciate Andy holding the fort down. Here's just some quick thoughts from me about TakeOver. Andy, Dad, you guys can respond to this if you want to. Walter and Dragunov, I know that was your favorite match, Andy. Let me just say, I thought this match was stupid good. I mean, it was just, their style is not really what I enjoy. I have been vocal about that, but man, I'm biased because I was there live for Edge and Seth Rollins. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm biased that was the match of the weekend. Daggum. This match was just ridiculous. Yeah. What shocked me is that Walter tapped out.
Yeah.
That's what blew me away. Yeah. After an 870 some day reign as champion, where I was in attendance when he won the title, by the way, but he tapped out. That was crazy to me.
Yeah.
You made the point about Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly maybe should have kicked off the show. The only reason that I say, obviously, that they shouldn't have, hindsight being 2020, was the reaction at the end of the match. Mm-hmm. Because the fans were not happy that Kyle O'Reilly won the match and that Adam Cole tapped out as quickly as he did.
Yeah.
I think maybe the Walter match ran over a little, maybe. So maybe they lost some time. I don't know. But the match, you hit it on the head, man. It just wasn't what it should have been. Yeah, it could have been a lot better. And then, of course, Samoa Joe and Karrion Kross. Obviously, I'm glad to see Joe as champion. He needs to get in ring shape, though, because, man, he was
gassed.
Oh, he was gassed many times in that match. Whoa.
He looked like at the pinfall when he got his hand raised, he looked relieved that the match was over in a lot of ways.
Really did. He really did. But what I'll say, and then definitely chime in on this, Andy, is Samoa Joe winning the NXT title goes completely against the narrative that we're reading on the dirt sheets about the rebranding to me, because they're talking about going younger and going with new faces and yada, yada, yada. Samoa Joe is none of that. Yeah. After all, he's the first ever 3-time NXT champion.
Yeah. And part of the thing I've heard is they're trying to get away from the Adam Cole, Finn Balor, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, even really physique or look.
Well, that's stupid.
And I think they're trying to get bigger, beefier guys because that's Vince McMahon's wheelhouse is bigger, beefier guys. And so I think that's part of the reason why Joe probably won is because now, let's say Walter comes over and you have Joe versus Walter, and Walter can go up to the main roster and Walter could be this big deal. So to me, it does kind of fit if they're going with that direction. But if they're going with the new faces, I think it does kind of work in some ways too, because you could keep an established guy like Joe as champion so that whoever beats him automatically just gets kind of pushed over even more because they beat this established NXT legend that is Samoa Joe.
So you think that's a guy like Pete Dunne? Is that a Kyle O'Reilly?
I don't think it's
in that spot.
I don't think after NXT TakeOver, I don't think it's Kyle O'Reilly anymore. I mean, it could be Odyssey Jones, man, from the breakout tournament. It could be a guy like him.
Do you think you push him straight there, though?
Not straight there. I think Joe keeps the belt for a while. And I think you kind of build up Odyssey Jones to that point. So you let Joe run through like a Johnny Gargano, and you let him run through a Pete Dunne, and you let him run through some of these other guys, and then when Odyssey Jones comes up, he kind of, because that would be that's a big boy match right there between those two guys.
I want to see Odyssey Jones against the guy in Hit Row that did the Most Wanted Treasure show.
Yeah,
listen, give me
that'd be a fun match. That'd be
give me
that would be yeah.
Dad, I know you don't watch NXT, or you don't watch it very frequently, at least, but you are familiar with Samoa Joe and all the great things that he's done.
He's been around a while.
Cool to see him be champ again. What do you think about what Andy said, him being kind of that guy to set the bar for NXT?
Well, it needs somebody to lead the way, and who better but Samoa Joe? He's 3-time champion. And his time back in NXT, then his time up in the big time with WWE, he has all the experience. So he can lead a younger guy that doesn't have experience the way he wants to do, and they can build somebody up really good, like this guy Chris is talking about, Odyssey Jones. They can, have back and forth, but Joe can lead the way.
Well, and, you look at Samoa Joe, like you said, he's been around the block. That doesn't even talk about all the matches that he had with Kurt Angle and TNA and AJ Styles and Sting. CM Punk and Christopher Daniels and Abyss, and list goes on and on. Joe's been around the block, not to mention, guys, nobody ever talks about this either. He trained with John Cena in California in 2000.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is incredible. He might not have the best physique in the world, but the guy is smart. He knows his stuff. I mean, he's a natural.
Yeah. And what time he was up with the main roster, he went against Roman and the other guys. He was a force then too.
Yep.
And I don't know exactly what happened with that, but he would be, if you pick someone out to come back down NXT, Joe can lead the young guys. They need him there.
Andy, I think it's exactly like when Finn Balor came back. Finn Balor is there. He's the established guy, put the title back on him for a while. And, same thing with Samoa Joe.
And I think Joe is a really good pick for that. I also think Kevin Owens would have been an amazing pick for this, because Kevin Owens was like NXT's life and blood at one point.
Yep.
And like you guys were talking about, Samoa Joe, it's not like, I think people forget some of the great stuff Samoa Joe did on the main roster. His match with Brock Lesnar was a lot of fun.
Really
a lot of fun. He's the only guy that I really remember that Brock kind of like took it to in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Or that Joe took it to Brock in a lot of ways.
Sure.
And so that like, I think a lot of people forget that. It's just a shame to me, and I hope we get it at some point, that we did not get a John Cena versus Samoa Joe one-on-one match. I think that has to be done at some point. I think it would be fun if John Cena came down to NXT and you had that there, because that would be a good way to get eyes on NXT. I mean, if you have John Cena go there, but I think it's pretty good for Joe to kind of hold this belt for a while and then have some young and up and coming guy beat him.
Well, I read a John Cena interview, and he has one more the Summer of Cena. He has one more match left, so that would be a good idea to go to NXT and do something.
I think that if we're looking ahead to that, and I don't mean to go down a huge rabbit hole, but Sam Roberts, I got to give him credit for this on the Not Sam podcast last Monday. He said, because he brought up that same point about John Cena having one more match. I think it needs to, because it's the SmackDown in 2 weeks.
Madison Square Garden.
I think it needs to be John Cena and Finn Balor.
Yeah.
Because
that makes sense storyline-wise.
Everything that happened with Finn Balor, have Cena come in and put him over.
Yeah.
Well, in that interview, it was said he has one more match left, and there's Madison Square Garden come up. He didn't say he was going to be, but it really emphasized that's what they're looking forward to, because they can sell seats there with Cena.
Absolutely.
No matter who he's against.
Yep. For sure. All right. If you are just now joining us, welcome to the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast, the show that is for the fans, by the fans, whether you're listening on Anchor, on Apple, on Spotify, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on our great partner, SportsWire Radio. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. Brand new episodes every Monday and every Thursday. Old school, new school. There's something for everybody here on the Pipe Bomb Wrestling Podcast. My name's Chris Belcher. You can follow me at Chris Belcher 24 on social media. To my right is my dad, Mr. Ancient School, as he has dubbed himself. I didn't call him old. He called himself old. Mr. Billy Belcher is in the house, and we're talking all things WWE NXT, and now we're going to transition over to AEW, but we couldn't transition to AEW without the indie darling himself, Mr. Andy York. And Andy, I was going to plug our t-shirt store over at prowrestlingtees.com/PBW podcast, but I don't know if it's functioning because of CM Punk.
They got it fixed. They finally got it fixed because I finally got my t-shirt like 48 hours later. I finally got it ordered and ready to go through, but they finally got it fixed.
That's insane. So let's talk about it. The elephant in the room. It's what we're all here to talk about. I know that the wrestling world has gone into shock. It all started on Friday night with the return, the long-awaited, 7-year absence? Is that
7,
right?
Yep.
Of CM Punk, signed on with AEW, debuted at Rampage on Friday night. I discussed this a little bit. Jared and I and Tom and my buddy Mike Irwin, we discussed this a little bit on the post SummerSlam show on SportsWire. If you haven't listened to that, make sure you go back in our archives and check it out. That wasn't really the platform, though, to go in depth about CM Punk. So we're going to talk here about how groundbreaking it really was, not just for AEW, but for professional wrestling as a whole. I'm going to kick this off with Andy because I know Andy is just dying. He's chomping at the bits.
I am.
To talk about CM Punk. Andy, the floor is yours. Feelings, thoughts, emotions. If you can even take us back to that night specifically.
Yeah.
Talking about the debut of CM Punk in AEW.
So, I mean, obviously we knew that the rumors, there were rumors that Punk was going to show up at Rampage on Friday night. And, we even talked about this before, Chris, of we're not actually going to believe it. I don't care if they play his music. I'm not going to believe it until I see a camera on this man. Cause he has been for lack of a better term, the holy grail of pro wrestling the last 7 years that everybody's been trying to find to put in their company or to come back or whatever. Because of the fan support and how many people wanted him back. And, a guy that gets CM Punk chant 7 years after not even being in WWE and talking about how bad he hated WWE and all this other stuff, for him to still chant CM Punk in the arena, shows how just over this guy still was. And so I was sitting on my couch Friday night. I made my wife watch it with me. Because I was just I told her I was sitting there shaking beforehand because I was like, this is my wrestling experience right here with CM Punk, because CM Punk is the guy that got me into pro wrestling. CM Punk is the guy that got me in. So I was sitting there just shaking. CM Punk chants were going on for a minute and I could tell that more than likely he was going to be there because they held on the crowd for way too long.
They did.
The music hit. He came out. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. The music hit. He came out. I think it was probably, and I'm biased and I'm okay with that, and I'm young and it's whatever. To me, it was probably the greatest, loudest pop in pro wrestling history. If it's not, it's definitely number 2 because I don't know what else really could beat it.
I think somebody from the Guinness Book of World Records tweeted and said it could be the loudest pop in history. Yeah, because it was so loud, and it wasn't that it was just loud. It was loud and continuous loud. It was so loud the entire time until he got a mic in his hand. And just to see the joy on his face kind of brought a lot of emotion to me because it was this guy, obviously, you can believe what you want to believe. He probably wasn't the easiest guy to work with all the time in WWE because I think he's even admitted he wasn't the easiest guy to always work with. But you could just see. I think he admitted it even in the promo, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He apologized. He apologized to a lot of people that he turned away from him or whatever.
Yeah.
And so just to see the joy back in his face that seemed like it would have been missing for a long time. Even before even while he was in WWE, there was a time where you could just tell that he probably wasn't in the right mental space to be in it. From him jumping into the crowd, getting that massive reaction, just all of it. It was so much emotion, so many emotions. I know a lot of people made fun of the guy crying in the audience, but I was almost there with them. It's when pro wrestling is so good that it brings your emotions out. It's really, really good. And so I absolutely loved every second of it. I've watched it probably 100 times back already, just because it's something I've been waiting for. So I'm so glad he's back. I'm so ready to see him wrestle it all out. I've already bought the pay-per-view, or not about the pay-per-view, but I've already got the plans to go watch it. And the t-shirt is bought. The ice cream bars are going to be there. I'm so ready to be there. So I'm very excited that he is back in
awesome.
pro wrestling. It's so cool to see him back.
Dad, before I get your thoughts, I will say that what you are sitting here describing about the return of CM Punk. This is no joke. That's how I felt when Sting debuted in WWE. It's exactly how I felt. Like when he showed up, like you talk about CM Punk returning for the first time in 7 years.
Yep.
Think about the weight of Sting in 2014, finally walking into a WWE building on camera in front of fans. The one guy that had never crossed over. And there he was. So,
and people even knew he was going to be there too. And
exactly.
And it was still just a massive pop.
And let me tell you, I'll say this. My hiatus from professional wrestling lasted from WrestleMania 26. Shawn Michaels wrestled his last match to Survivor Series 2014 when Sting debuted, because I was trying to dabble back in it a little bit, but I had read there was a good possibility. So that night I subscribed to the WWE Network for the first time. And there he was. Dad, I know you're not the biggest CM Punk fan in the world. But
I agree with you totally about the Sting thing. That, I mean, it wasn't as big as pop as CM Punk got.
No. Of course
but
not.
Him coming back from where he'd been was really, and Sting's of course he's called an icon. He is an icon in professional wrestling. And like I said before, he's in the top 6, maybe, or top 8 wrestlers of all time.
Sure.
So that's good.
What's your thoughts about CM Punk?
Well, I was getting ready to say,
I know, I did. I interrupted you.
I watched CM Punk when he was in the WWE. I wasn't a big fan of his. He's athletic. He's a really good worker, really good on the mic. And I think his time in WWE, he didn't get treated well, and that sort of swerved his attitude.
Sure did.
And that's why he left. And then I watched the 9 minutes that he did the other night on AEW, and that guy was talking from his heart. Everything was genuine about that guy. And like I say, he can work. He's good on the mic. He will just make that company that much better.
Yep.
And I'm sure he's getting paid a good dollar for it too. But he really adds to me. You brought Jericho in. This is getting right close to Jericho again.
Yep.
And up there with Sting. This is when you bring CM Punk in, you're bringing a name in.
Yep.
And it only elevates AEW, but it hurts WWE because more people want him to go back to WWE.
Well, I think you're catering to the AEW audience when you bring in CM Punk. I don't think if CM Punk would have come to WWE, it would have been a shock, but the fanfare would not have been nearly as big, or it would not have lasted nearly as long as it's going to last. Because in front of this crowd, that's CM Punk's crowd. Andy, one of the things that rubbed me wrong in his promo, and I understand why he did it, was when he basically ignored his WWE run. I understand why he did it, but as a CM Punk fan, because obviously you knew some of CM Punk's independent stuff, but you mainly know him from WWE.
Right.
As a CM Punk fan, did you take that wrong? I don't want to say you were upset by that, but what were your thoughts on that?
I didn't take it wrong, because what's interesting enough is my love for independent wrestling actually started with Punk, because when he cut that promo, when he cut the pipe bomb promo and mentioned Ring of Honor and all this other stuff, that's when I started to go check out some of his different stuff in Ring of Honor. So, and then that's when I kind of got into Ring of Honor, New Japan, all that other stuff. So that's kind of where that started for me. And it didn't really rub me the wrong way, because I kind of get what he was saying of WWE is not professional wrestling. It is, but it's mainly focused on sports entertainment, whereas AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan, all these independent promotions are strictly pro wrestling with a little bit of sports entertainment, a little bit of character work, all that stuff everywhere else. So I kind of get where he was saying with he hasn't been in professional wrestling since 2005, because the company he was in wasn't focused on pro wrestling. It was focused on the sports entertainment side of things. So to me, it didn't rub the wrong way. In fact, to me, it made a lot of sense. And I think that's where a lot of the new people from the new audience for AEW is going to be, people that were turned away by how CM Punk was treated in WWE and just quit watching professional wrestling or quit watching WWE because, of the fact that it was not pro wrestling. It was more sports entertainment. And so I think we're going to see a lot more demographic go from people that have been missing on pro wrestling and have been waiting for CM Punk to come back. They're all going to go to AEW and stay with AEW because of the fact that not only is CM Punk there, but now he's going to get more eyes on, it's weird to say this, but more eyes on Kenny Omega. He's going to get more eyes on Adam Hangman Page, on Darby Allen at All Out, on Orange Cassidy. He's going to put more eyes on this promotion. And even ESPN was tweeting about it. So ESPN was talking about AEW, which is a big deal. The Chicago Blackhawks were talking about AEW. Yep. The New Jersey Devils were talking about. So they're getting a lot more mainstream media from CM Punk coming back. So, but going back to your original point, I've gone on a rabbit hole. But going back to your original point, it didn't rub me the wrong way because I kind of saw where he was coming from with it.
Right, and I totally did too. I think what I took from it, and Dad, you can weigh in on this too. What I took from it is maybe that, yes, Andy, to your point, sports entertainment, pro wrestling. Yes, I get that. But even though CM Punk was a popular independent wrestler, he wouldn't be where he is today or nearly as popular without the WWE, without that national platform.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I think he was really hurt what the WWE did to him. Vince didn't put him on a rocket ship like he did a lot of other people. And if Punk had got that push like he wanted, there's another what if question. Would he have ever left?
Right.
But I think, he was hurt. He left. He went and tried MMA. Evidently that didn't work out.
Clearly.
He's a professional wrestler, not a professional sports entertainer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when he comes back to AEW, that's his niche.
Yep, it is.
It's not, he can't get in MMA, but this is as close as he can get to the real thing.
Yep.
And it's not sports entertainment like WWE. Plus, it didn't hurt for him coming back in his hometown.
Right. Oh, that was huge.
That just made it that much more.
Yeah.
And now, Tony Khan's smart enough, he's going to put a rocket on him, and he's going to run him through everybody. Where he wins the title or not, that's yet to be seen. Because I think eventually it's going to wind up CM Punk, Kenny Omega.
It has to.
Somewhere down the line, but he's got to go through Darby Allen and all these other guys to prove he's back.
To me,
go ahead.
I think the more marquee match for me would be CM Punk versus Hangman Page because of the straight edge versus the drinking. Like that, to me, that kind of writes the story itself. I think obviously we're going to get Punk Omega at some point. I think Omega's probably going to lose the title to Hangman Page, but that's a different topic for a different day.
Right.
But I think, I totally agree. CM Punk's going to go through this, and he's one of those guys. He's like a Jericho where he's going to win, but just the fact that you're in the ring with him, your status is elevated in the eyes of everybody else and in the company.
Andy, is Darby Allen the right opponent for the first match of CM Punk? And the only reason I say that is because the pushing Darby Allen is like this next big thing kind of deal. Yep. And now you're going to bring in CM Punk. Are you meaning to tell me that Darby Allen's going to beat CM Punk in CM Punk's first match? I don't think so.
No, I don't think, especially since it's in Chicago. I don't think so either.
I'm not saying it's going to hurt Darby Allen. Right. I just don't like it.
To me, it doesn't bother me because I think it is a great matchup because Darby Allen and CM Punk is one of those matchups that obviously we've never seen before. And I've never even thought about it until they brought it up. And when they said it, I was like, this is going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. And the thing about Punk is we still don't know what he's like in the ring. If Edge is any indication, he's probably going to do some of his better work now than he ever has before, but you never really know. So to me, Darby Allen is a guy that you can put in the ring with Punk. Punk's more than likely going to go over. They're going to have a really great match. And Punk, it's going to be like kind of when Darby Allen lost or drew with Cody Rhodes. Like him not winning is not going to hurt him because he's in there with a guy like CM Punk in his first match back in pro wrestling in 7 years. That's just going to elevate you even more because you're the guy that got trusted to be put with CM Punk in his first match back. So it kind of it may not seem like it, but it may be more like the Miz treatment where like we trust you enough, we're going to put you with this guy to bring him back. And I think AEW fans are smart enough to realize that and recognize that and appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Darby Allen is, he is really underappreciated by some people.
Yep.
And when he wrestles, he gives like about 200%.
He does.
He don't hold back.
Especially with the coffin drop, he doesn't.
Oh, that's one of the best moves I've seen all year.
Yeah, I just find it interesting. I'm always weirded out by the big babyface versus babyface matches.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying you can't have them. I just think it's interesting timing. But
well, and I think there's no really storyline going into it as of right now. So it's just kind of like a marquee match that's going to sell the pay-per-view.
Makes sense.
And I think that kind of fits more than if they're trying to tell this big, massive story with it.
I would have done Punk and Moxley first.
Yeah. I mean, I probably would have done Punk and MJF first.
Yeah.
I like to
get more protein.
His ass.
And get some promo time between the two guys. I mean,
absolutely.
The promos between those two guys are going to be impeccable when they finally cross hairs.
Speaking of MJF and speaking of chill bump moments, we have to go back to last week's Dynamite. We have to talk about the incredible acapella entrance of Chris Jericho.
Yep.
With everybody singing Judas on his way to the ring. That was seriously one of the coolest things I've ever seen in professional wrestling.
There's only one or two entrances that can top that. Road Warriors is first.
Yeah.
When you hear the sound.
Yep.
And Stone Cold. But when Jericho comes out and everybody in the stands knows his song.
Yep.
That pays real homage to Jericho.
Yeah, it does.
Yep. I really want to see a CM Punk versus Jericho match with no entrance music and just let the crowd sing both of those guys during, because they were singing Punk's music down too, because everybody knows the Cult of Personality. Everybody knows that song.
Right.
And so I think that would just be a lot of fun between those two. I texted you afterwards. It's something I've never seen before. It's something we'll probably never see again.
Nope.
And it's like you said, it shows how over Chris Jericho is with everybody. I mean, with everybody, he is so over, and it's nobody else could get this done but Chris Jericho. It's one of those things. It's like a list. He got a song over, like he got a list over, and nobody could do it but Chris Jericho. I mean, it was amazing.
Well, just one more point about Chris's question is Darby Allen and CM Punk, the match to do. Well, it's a pay-per-view. You want to sell a lot of tickets. There's no animosity. I mean, there's no storyline in between them to start with.
Right.
Why not have two of the best go at it to kick it all off and send Punk on his way? Because he's not going to get nobody to give him better effort than Darby Allen.
Well, and that's true. And that's very true. And Andy, I wouldn't be shocked if that match kicks off pay-per-view.
I was going to say that too, because if you're going to be in Chicago, you're going to have them wait through the pay-per-view. They're going to just be chanting CM Punk the entire night. So you
Cult of Personality hits right off top.
Yep. And he comes out, and I mean, what's really cool about it is, like, when CM Punk mentioned Darby Allen, he didn't, like, Darby Allen didn't get booed. There was Darby Allen, like, everybody was chanting Darby Allen too. So it's a match that everybody wants to see. And I guess the storyline going into it is to prove who the best in the world is, because Darby Allen cut that promo a couple weeks ago saying, I don't care who you are, the best in the world. And I think that was just to kind of cross that over. So I think they'll just kind of show who the best in the world is, who is the best right now. A guy that's been there for a while or a guy that's been gone for 7 years. So I think that's pretty intriguing for me.
You're right.
But the question about putting it on first is, this could be the match of the whole pay-per-view.
Yeah. Can you top that?
Yeah. Are you going to top that? The crowd's not going to be into it as much when Omega and Hangman come out there. After I had Darby Allen, CM Punk, I don't know.
It's a hard card to put together. I mean, because
on first.
I think I would put it on first too, and probably put a lesser match, or just give some time between the matches, let the crowd kind of die back down a little bit, maybe do a promo, maybe have Mark Henry come out and do a little dance or something. I don't know, and then you go out and have the rest of the card. But
you have an intermission. Just have an intermission.
Yeah, just take a break.
We're going to take a break.
We're taking a CM Punk break. Everybody go buy a T-shirt. We'll be back. We'll be back.
That's it. Let's go back to Jericho for just a second. Andy, I thought it was really strange that Jericho lost the fifth labor of Jericho to MJF. And the way that they set it up, like, I know his arm's injured, but for him to tap as quick as he did and for that to just kind of be it.
Yeah.
Was that booking weird to you?
Yes and no. I think MJF was going to, I think it's smart for MJF to win for me, because it just gives him another notch of, like, look who I am, look what I'm doing. But at this point, how does he not have a world title match? Because he's run through a lot of stuff. He's done a lot of good stuff. So, But to me, I think it's just kind of more of like Chris Jericho passing the torch in a weird way to MJF.
Sure.
Because I think MJF is definitely the future of AEW. He's one of the futures of AEW because of he's great in the ring. His heel work is amazing. His mic work is amazing. And to me, I really like how the commentary was like, Jericho was not supposed to lose this match. Like how must it feel for Jericho to go through these labors, win 4 of them, but lose to the guy he really wanted to beat up? Like, I think it adds even more character to Chris Jericho.
I definitely think that MJF would have won out in the end, or should have won out in the end. But I expected Jericho to win the 5th labor, and then MJF come out and say, no, it's not going to be that way.
Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada. Have another match.
I was expecting Jericho, when the ref bump happened, to hit a Judas effect anyway and get the pin 1, 2, 3 maybe, and then MJF could come out and say, well, you cheated. But I guess it was just it was just to show, like, I guess it was to put MJF over even more. And to make him even more of this, it's really to put the rocket on MJF to say, this is one of our guys in the company that we are pushing to the moon, no matter who comes back, no matter who's going to be here. MJF is going to be one of the forefront guys.
Dad, you made a little comment about MJF a minute ago. How do you feel about Maxwell Jacob Friedman?
I don't like him. And I think my opinion is they let him win. He has tremendous heat already. This just makes it that much more because you got Chris Jericho, who is one of the best ever.
Yep.
And you beat him, and you let everybody know you beat him, and you act like it from here on out. I'm better than Jericho. People are going to hate him that much more.
Well, the real question is, does MJF have Logan Paul heat? That's the real question.
Yes, he does. I think
he does too.
I really think he does, which is very interesting. We can't gloss over the fact that last week on Dynamite, Sting wrestled his first match on TNT in 20 years. Mm-hmm. Coming up this Monday, we're going to talk about this in just a minute, but we'll talk a lot about Sting. But Dad, Sting wrestling in a tornado tag match against 2 guys that just came from NXT, with him and Darby Allen doing the double Scorpion Death Drop and then the double Scorpion Death Lock. That was a cool way to start Dynamite.
Sting has just got older. He's not lost his ring savvy, what to do and how to do it. He might have got a little bit slower,
right?
But he's still Sting, and he's going to sell tickets, and he's going to make Darby Allen better than he is. It's hard. It might be a little hard to do, but Darby Allen is going to be one of the best, I think, just because of he doesn't care what he does in the ring. And Sting used to be that way, but Sting is a little more conservative now. He has to be, but it didn't look like he missed a step.
Yep. Not only did he not miss a step and was not conservative in that match, Andy, he no-sold a powerbomb through a table.
I was getting ready to say, this man loves to no-sell, because we talked about the Flair Sting match from, was it 1990?
Yes. Yep.
And that man no-sold everything that Flair did in that match. So it was just, but to me, it fit because it's Sting. It's his first match in 20 years. It's TNT. Nobody really cares about 2.0 that much. It's a great starting to match. And just like these 2 young guys put Sting through the table, think they got it. He just stands back up and is like, that didn't even faze me. I love it.
Right.
I think it worked really well. It was a great way to kick off the show. I'm looking forward to, with this pairing between Sting and Darby Allen, I'm looking forward to the day where either Sting, which I don't know how you're going to do it, but Sting or Darby Allen turn on one another and sets up a really great match, an interesting match between the 2 guys. Because it kind of shows, again, like Darby Allen's going to get CM Punk's first match in AEW. Darby Allen's going to get a big singles match. It may be one of Sting's first singles matches that's not a pre-taped match. In front of an AEW crowd. So like there's a lot of trust behind Darby Allen. And so I'm really looking forward to that point when it actually happens.
Here's how I would do that. And to save face with Darby Allen, I would pull the old Shawn Michaels treatment with Darby Allen. Have Darby Allen go to Sting and say, hey man, I just got to know. I just got to know if I can beat the Icon.
Yeah.
And that's how they set the match up.
Yeah.
That way you save face with Darby Allen. Sting doesn't have to try to turn heel because that's ridiculous. Yep. I think that's a way to do it. But yeah, I think that's a good point.
Well, I think as long as Sting has been wrestling, I don't think he'll ever turn into a heel.
I don't think he can.
He can't. And he's just not in it,
He was good. He was pretty good in the Main Event Mafia and TNA, but that wasn't really on a national scale.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But a match between them would be really good. I think so.
Yeah. All right. One more thing that I have to add about AEW before we kind of close up shop here. Andy, let me just say that every time Sammy Guevara steps in a ring, he blows me away.
Yeah, man.
That dude, oh my gosh. He is incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
Every time he wrestles.
He should, I'm going to see how I can word this. Sammy Guevara is what Ricochet should be in WWE.
Yes.
Because Sammy Guevara is a guy that is just so fluid in the ring. Like it's like, and I don't mean this in a bad way. It's like watching a dance happen right in front of you because he is so fluid, but it's so natural at the same time.
Yep.
And so I'm really great. Him being a part of, I just lost the name of it because there's so many. Inner Circle. Thank you. Him being a part of the Inner Circle, like that really got more eyes on him. But now he's kind of doing his own thing. He is really stepping up into his own, and I absolutely love it. I think he is. There's so many young guys in AEW that could be future AEW stars. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not stars, but they could be like main event
faces
level
of the company.
Faces of the company. Yeah, and it's that's what's so cool about this, because when you get guys like Punk, and if you get a guy like Bryan Danielson, and let's say the worst timeline for WWE happens and Adam Cole shows up in AEW. Like,
oh my gosh,
all these younger guys are going to come up. And if all three of those happen, I'm going to tell you now, I think WWE needs to start realizing that they are a competition if those three guys jump ship and go to AEW.
Yep.
And realize that they need to start taking this a little more seriously, because I think we're going to start seeing a lot of viewers shift over because the wrestling is better. The production's not always better, but people look past that when really good wrestling is on. And I think that's going to be a big part of it. So I think we are starting to see the shift and the tides changing even more favor into AEW than ever before.
Well, let me just say this, and Dad, I'll throw it to you because I want to hear what your thoughts are about Sammy Guevara. I'll say this. I don't think viewership is going to take a big hit because it's on the same night.
Right.
Until they make Rampage this big show, I don't think you're going to divide the audience in any way. Because Dark and Dark Elevation, you can go back and watch those whenever you want to.
Right.
You don't have to watch those on Monday. So, and Raw had a big jump after SummerSlam, which was shocking because we sat and watched Raw the other night and it wasn't that great, but it did over 2 million viewers after SummerSlam. Yeah. So obviously they're still doing something right. But Andy, I agree. Momentum is shifting, especially if within 1 month, within one calendar month, if you get Punk, Cole, and Danielson, holy smoke.
With the potential of a Bray Wyatt popping up there too. I mean,
with the potential of Bray Wyatt and with the potential of Ric Flair at some point.
Yeah.
Popping
and Ruby Soho. I mean, there's a lot of things happening that could happen.
All of those things. What do you think about, I'm not going to say what you think about Ric Flair going to AEW because, I mean, you're going to watch him anytime he's on TV. But what do you think about all that and Sammy Guevara specifically?
Well, Tony Khan's got deep pockets.
We know, we all know that.
So getting all these other people is just going to be, he's just going to see marquee on the signs, big marquees out with all these guys, especially with Bryan Danielson. I think he is really, he would make another jump in that company. Sammy Guevara, I like watching him. He is quick. He's fast, and whatever he does, he's not laboring in doing it. It's all fluid when he's out there. And I think being in Inner Circle with Jericho, he has learned it up here.
Yep.
He's learned a lot from Chris Jericho.
For sure.
Yep.
I think, just think what a tag team Sammy Guevara and Darby Allen would be.
Yeah. And that would be,
and Sammy Guevara has the same kind of attitude, sort of, as Darby Allen. He has a no care, I'm going to go do this because he is athletic enough to do that. I really like him. I think he's ready to go out on his own.
Andy, to your point, Dad, you just sprang this thought in my head. You mentioned earlier about how much of a hit CM Punk is to WWE. I think Bryan Danielson's the bigger hit. I think once AEW signs him, and that's just because I think I mentioned this on the post show the other night. I really can't remember what I mentioned on the post show the other night because I was very sleep deprived and I was about to go get on an airplane in like 2 hours. But anyway, I think Bryan Danielson is the bigger hit because I'm not going to say he made his name in WWE, but he didn't leave with a sour taste.
Right.
He was so beloved in WWE, just like CM Punk.
Yeah.
But he stuck around. And WWE fans got to see him get medically disqualified, then come back and have all of that. So I think that's the bigger hit to WWE.
I think I agree. I think that is the bigger hit because as far as I can remember, he would be the first guy that wasn't released by WWE but chose to go to AEW instead of re-sign with WWE.
Correct.
So that's like the first, like within shot being taken from a guy leaving WWE to go to AEW. So to a WWE standpoint, I think Bryan Danielson would be a massive like body blow to them. To me, though, I think in the grand scheme of things, I think Punk is a bigger deal to everybody.
Sure it is.
But to WWE specifically, I think Bryan Danielson is the much bigger body blow to them. And in a weird way, I think Ruby Soho is going to be a bigger body blow to them than they realize because they're going to see how much potential they wasted with her.
She should have been women's champion within a year of being in WWE. I said that from when she debuted.
Yeah, she should have been NXT women's champion. She never was. Like there's a lot of missed opportunities with her.
I know.
Well, to your point, Andy, Bryan Danielson could walk into WWE and he could get his job back if he wanted.
Yeah, absolutely, he could.
That Vince would have no problem with that.
Yeah,
but he's making a lifestyle or a life choice to go to AEW.
And there are so many matches he wants to have, like in AEW, that he's already gone through everybody he really wants to go through in WWE. There's nothing else for him to do there.
That's right.
He can get CM Punk now.
Yep.
Good grief.
Without a WWE creative behind them, like get to go do whatever they want to do.
Speaking of AEW stars, before we sign off, I want to make sure to plug this weekend's Music City Fight Night at Helios Granite in Nashville, Tennessee. Coastal Championship Wrestling. If you are in the area, I highly recommend that you go to ccwrestlingfl.com. Get your tickets for Music City Fight Night. It is this Saturday, if you're listening to this on the day that it drops. This Saturday, August the 28th in Nashville, Tennessee, because AEW star, the former FTW champion, the Machine Brian Cage, will be in action in the main event against Davey Richards. What an incredible match it's going to be, and it's going to be loaded with a bunch of other great CCW talent. CCW Alive Wrestling every Tuesday on YouTube. Make sure you check it out. I'm telling you all, this is no frills, no BS. I'm not saying this just because I was able to do commentary with them. This independent wrestling company knows what they're doing, and their quality of wrestling is top notch. Let me just tell you. So you don't want to miss this. If you're in the Nashville area, make sure you come out and watch Music City Fight Night. The Machine, Brian Cage, will be here, and it's going to be fantastic. That's coming up this weekend. But before that, Andy, do we have a new episode of The Shandy Show this week? What's going on? What's coming up?
Oh, we do, because they just dropped the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer that's coming out in December that everybody has been screaming out on Twitter to receive, like to get for the last 6 months. And we're only 112 days from the movie. So this is the closest we've gotten the first trailer to the movie release. So everybody it's been a great 4 days for me. Punk returned on Friday. You had SummerSlam on Saturday. You had Joe returning on Sunday. You had the Spider-Man movie trailer on Monday. I'm expecting something amazing to happen before I go to bed tonight too. This is my luck has been really good. I feel like a better version of Baron Corbin right now. So I'm very excited for it.
And you didn't even have to leave town for it.
No, I didn't. Yeah, last time I left town, everything broke loose. So this time I got to stay and watch it happen. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, maybe this time we can get Chris to watch No Way Home.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it looks like I watched the trailer. It's going
to be good.
Yeah,
it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I dislike any of that. It's just not my favorite thing. I will say, though, that I've been a guest on the Shandy Show before, and it is a lot of fun. They know exactly what they're talking about. And if that is your world, DC, Marvel, all that kind of stuff, make sure you follow them at the Shandy Show, wherever you, your social media platform of choice, wherever you find your podcast, that's where the Shandy Show is going to be. So make sure you check that out as well. Dad, we are 2 for 2 on episodes because this coming Monday, we have already recorded probably one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done of the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast. This coming Monday, wrestling fans, please don't miss it. We will be talking all about the greatest what ifs in the world of professional wrestling. If you want to know stuff about what would have happened if Sting would have jumped ship a lot earlier, what would have happened if Shawn Michaels would have jumped ship to WCW, what happens if AJ Styles joins WWE a lot sooner, all that and so much more. I'm just glad that you were able to be on the show. Well, it's a lot of fun.
I can go back a little ways and tell you about stuff like that.
I know you can, Mr. Ancient School.
And I taught him everything, you know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you did. You taught me everything.
Even be opinionated.
Even to be opinionated. That's right. But seriously, no. Thanks for doing 2 for 2 with us. Glad. It's a lot of fun.
Anytime you want me to. And Andy, maybe sometime I can hook up with you on Marvel, because I've watched every one of them from the Captain America, the first Avenger.
Yep.
Some of them I've watched 2 or 3 times. And I'm a mark for Avengers now.
Oh yeah.
It's just like wrestling. There's a lot of behind the scenes and gimmicks going on there. It's really good.
Yep.
Just on the way to missing.
I guess I don't. Sorry, y'all. But anyway, Andy, my trusty Thursday tag team partner, thanks again for hopping on, man. And I'm telling you, this is, again, I'm not BSing here when I say, for your sake and for my best friend Jason Bakowitz, for your all sake, CM Punk stuff, it's insane, and I'm just glad we got a platform to talk about it.
Yeah, I've said it 1,000 times. CM Punk is what got me into pro wrestling. But like I said before, the Shield and Seth Rollins really kept me in pro wrestling. So I owe both those guys, like, everything that I love about this industry and this business really came from those 2 guys. So this weekend has been a great weekend for me, and I'm so glad to see him back. And I hope he blows up the wrestling world even more.
I think he'll be better than he ever was.
I don't know how he can blow it up any more than he did on Friday night.
Oh, he'll find a way. He's smart. He'll find a way.
Goodness.
Well, he brought the ice cream bars back. He'll find something else to bring back.
He did bring the ice cream bars back. That's true. All right. So make sure you all check out the Shandy Show for all of your DC and Marvel needs. Make sure that you check out this coming Monday, the greatest what ifs in the world of professional wrestling. Make sure that you head on out to Helios Granite Saturday night, August 28th for CCW Music City Fight Night. Make sure you check out all of the great shows on SportsWire Radio. So many great hosts over there, so many great shows for your sports needs, your football needs, your wrestling needs, your music needs. Everything is covered over at SportsWire Radio. Shout out to Tom and those guys. We really appreciate all of their support, everything they've done for us. We appreciate it very much. This has been your Thursday edition of the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast. Make sure you follow us at PBW Podcast to catch up on all the wrestling needs. Every Monday and Thursday, we've got brand new episodes. If you forget all of those things and you're watching on YouTube, check out our fancy ticker down at the bottom. It will remind you. And follow me on social media as well. I am at Chris Belcher 24. Thank you again for joining us. We appreciate your support here on the Pie Bomb Wrestling Podcast. We will catch you guys down the road.